Welcome to HFNN News. I'm Chris Murray.
I'm Austin Thompson.
And today we bring you a very special program that is only exclusive to HFNN viewers. Austin, tell me about it.
Well, the novel, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
Fantastic.
You know, a real classic.
I read that back in high school.
Back in high school. You know, I did too. Maybe in Miss Villato's class, you might have been.
I think so. Great English teacher.
Well, anyway, back to Huckleberry Finn. You love him. You know about him. We all know it because of the novelist Mark Twain.
Mark Twain.
Well, really, what do we know about him as a person, a human, his thoughts? We know his story, but we never heard from him. Well, today, everybody, an HF special, we have the one, the only, Huckleberry Finn himself. Huck, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well, Austin.
How you doing, Huck? How's everything?
I'm good.
Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, let's get right to
Right
this.
to the business.
Well, first off, we read in the novel, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, that you live in the beginning with Widow Douglas and Miss Watson. How was life with that?
It wasn't really for me. They attempted to civilize me a lot. They wanted me to behave very well. They wanted me to go to church, learn to be a man of God. And having basically grown up without a father, it just wasn't for me. I prefer to have freedom. I'm not really interested in learning about religion. Some of the ideas seemed hypocritical, so it just really wasn't for me. The widow and Miss Watson were very nice people, don't get me wrong,
Of course.
and they were very kind, but
Yeah, of course.
it just wasn't for me whatsoever.
That's true.
Okay. Now, moving on, thank you for your heartfelt answer. Moving on to your early childhood. Now, we all know, all the readers know, that you didn't have the best childhood in the world.
Of course.
Nor was it parallel to other children growing up in that day of age. So, tell me about how you felt when you saw other kids. Were you able to keep up with them in their studies and their intelligence, as well as just their social life? Did you have the same kind of life as they had growing up in the social and intelligence aspect?
Well, if you're asking about school,
Yes.
I don't really do school. I don't need school.
Right.
Oh, I do what's good for Huckleberry Finn, and
Right.
only what's good for Huckleberry Finn.
Of course.
Of course.
As for socializing, I've never had a problem with that. I make friends easily, and basically I can go wherever I want. That's one of the few benefits to not really having any structure in your life is you can go wherever you want to do and basically do whatever you want to do. Exactly.
Now we know you were close with Tom. Tom is one of your
Yeah.
best friends, and
Of course.
right. So that's a very interesting answer, and
Yeah.
it's good to see that you're still able to get right up and do things, same as other kids,
Yeah.
although you weren't have any formal upbringing.
Yes.
Of course.
Now, moving on to a more serious note, your entrapment in the cabin, when
Yes.
your father trapped you in there. Tell me about how that was. It must have been very tough. As
It
a
was
child.
really nerve-wracking, and especially when he would get drunk, I would fear for my life. I mean, as you all read, he chased me around with a large knife, calling me the angel of death. I thought he was going to stab me to death.
That's
I grabbed a musket in self-defense. I was afraid I might have to shoot my own father.
right. That's
And
that's,
I realized,
Something.
that's not something a child should have to think
Yeah.
about.
and basically I realized that if I was continuously trapped in this cabin, I was just going to either go crazy or just be forced to harm my own father. And obviously no one wants to do
No
that,
one wants to do
regardless of how
Yeah.
good or bad a
Of course,
person their
of
father is. So I realized I had to escape, and I started digging my way out and eventually escaped.
It's very brave on your part. Now, I believe Austin has a few things to say to you.
Yes, of course. So you were speaking to us about how you escaped from the cabin.
Yes.
Now, as we read in the novel, most of the time you were on a raft.
Yes.
After
Yes.
this, a raft. Okay, so how was this life on the raft? Was it dangerous? Was it hard? How did you enjoy it?
I mean, I felt very free on there, being an adventurous person, and I was with Jim, who over the course of the novel, as you all saw, I grew very close to. He's a
Right.
dear friend.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what happened is we could do whatever we wanted. We basically just floated where we wanted to, basically took whatever we needed or bought it, or hunted it, for that matter. And basically we had no laws restricting what we could or couldn't do. Nobody was telling us what we had to do. We lived basically as equals, and essentially, we just had a free life where we could go wherever we wanted to go.
That's true. So, along with Jim, on your so-called adventures,
Right.
Yes.
you met many characters. We read in the novel you met the Duke and the Dolphin.
Classic characters.
Yes.
Classic.
So, what were some of your experience with the Duke and Dolphin? How were these guys?
Well, when I first met them, they were both being chased by mobs, and we allowed them onto the raft.
It's very nice of you.
Courageous.
Brave, yeah.
It was brave, but it was also a somewhat dumb move on our part, as you would see later in the novel.
Of course.
I mean, at first they just seemed sort of to be ridiculous. I mean, I knew from the start they weren't actually the Duke of Bridgewater and the Dauphin of France. That's ridiculously unlikely. I mean, clearly Jim didn't know it and he believed it more, but I figured it was better to just go along with their
Let it
whims.
slide.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Of course.
So, originally they just seemed to be like minor con artists. They weren't really that dangerous to people, it seemed. But then they kept growing eviler and eviler, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, they started performing more ridiculous cons. Like, they performed that Royal Nonsuch,
That was
which basically he conned people for 3 nights and
Shortest film
then
I've ever seen.
nearly got us
I know.
attacked before we escaped onto the river. And then they were just totally despicable after that. They attempted to portray a dead man's brothers and steal a fortune from 3 of the loveliest women I've ever met.
Not something you
The
see every
Now,
day.
Tom, goodness gracious. Now, for trying to portray a dead man's brother,
Yes.
how could you not just reveal them right there and then?
Well, I also feared for my own as well as Jim's safety, because you can't forget, it's not like you can just admit that without them assuming, oh, you're a part of this as well.
That's right.
So, I had to look out for my own and Jim's self-interest as well as for the Wilkes sisters. And
Right.
what really drove me to the point that I had to confess was that when I saw how Mary Jane was so overwhelmed by the sadness of seeing the family of slaves separated, I just couldn't take that in my heart, and it overwhelmed me, and I revealed our secret.
It's tough on the readers too, as well.
That-
Yeah, it was a hard moment in my life.
Well, one more thing for me, and then I'll bring it to Chris.
No, bro.
So you and Jim,
Mhm.
very close as we see in the novel. Now, in the beginning, he was property, team
Yes.
property. But how did your feelings change
Well,
as you went through the book?
as I went through the book and through my adventures, essentially I began to realize that slaves are people just like anybody who's white.
Right.
That's right.
And that they have the same feelings, same emotions, as you all saw. Jim felt exactly the same way about his family that a white woman would, or a white man would.
Mhm.
And basically, it was just, we became very close friends. As you saw, Jim said I was his only friend and the one who basically he could most trust, and essentially I feel roughly the same about Jim.
And he did look after you.
He really did. He was almost like a father figure in a sense, because he kind of kept me on the straight and narrow.
Now, speaking about father figures, Jim covered your eyes in the house when there was a dead man.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's.
And what do we learn more about that, Chris? About the dead man? What did we find out about that dead man?
Let's just talk to bring him. We're gonna get to that, but I just want to bring the tone over to Pap, his father. Now we all know. I know it. Austin knows it, and Huck knows it. Pap wasn't gonna win any Father of the Year award at any time soon. Now, being your relationship with Pap wasn't the most common father-son relationship.
Yeah.
Talk about how his death affected, because later you'll learn
Mhm.
that it was his father, it was your father.
Yes.
For the readers, that was a tough thing to go through. Now, we're just curious
Talk about
Yes.
irony.
here at HF and in News and for our viewers at home. how did that affect you? Because for me, if anything happened to my father, that it would be the end of the world, because I have a very close relationship with him. Now, I'm curious to see how someone whose relationship isn't as close, how that affected you. So,
Well, in a sense, it was almost like a weight being lifted on my shoulders because,
wow.
as you could all see through the novel, Pap was very abusive. He was drunk.
As
I
most
said,
of the time.
Yeah, basically all he really did to me was get money to go get drunk and then beat me. So it was basically a good feeling because I was freed. But obviously, anytime you lose a family member, you are a little saddened, but generally it was just a feeling of relief.
Right.
Because I no longer had to fear abuse or for my life or for threats or extortion. So
wow.
generally it was a feeling of relief and freedom.
Well, listen, we're all glad that you don't have to worry anymore. There's there's no one coming after you. That's your own flesh and blood. That's just it's harrowing.
Yes, but as for saying that, since that weight was lifted off of you and you had time to pretty much do your own thing with life nowadays.
Yes.
What exactly are your plans for the future?
My plans for the future? Well, as you saw, Tom's aunt adopted me, but as I've heard, she's going to attempt to civilize me, so I'm planning on heading to the Oklahoma territory because there I can have as many adventures as I want and live my life the way I plan to.
Start new and
exactly. It's a fresh start. You meet new people, and generally it's just a new adventure. Wow. It's a new frontier.
Maybe Mark will come up with a new book. Maybe we'll be seeing about that in the future.
Maybe.
All right.
Maybe, just maybe.
Huckleberry, it has been a fantastic time interviewing you.
Thank you, of course.
So coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to have some HFNN news. We have some breaking news just coming in from the newsroom, but we're going to break to commercial and get that all situated. We'll see you in the 9 o'clock hour. Thank you. And with that, I'm Chris Murray.
I'm Austin Thompson.
That's the news.
Do you shoot like this?
Come on! Come on! Come on! What do I do?
Instead of using one of these basic balls, you should be using a little something like this. Use one of these.
Michael? Larry?
That's right.
That's right.
Nothing but that all day, every day. Especially back in the outside.
Spalding, the ball I could trust.